We're back out here once again, and today we're talking about some easy hacks that I do that get me bites on those days when I just have to catch a fish. And best of all, they don't cost a single penny. Stick around, you don't want to miss this one. There we are. Come on, buddy. Stay down. Ooh, that's pretty good. Get up here, I want to ski you in so you can't. Boy, he's a pretty good fighter. That's a pretty good fight. Oh, he's a good fish. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing. And it's a sad fact of bass fishing. We are going to struggle on some days. There's no way to get around it. Some days are going to be better than others. And some days are just going to be a flat out grind. But that doesn't mean that we can't catch a few fish still. You know, you struggle out there for several hours and you don't get a bite, and then you turn it around. You get one bite, you catch one fish, and it changes the entire complexion of the day. You don't feel that frustration nearly as much anymore. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. We're talking about several things that we can do to change the complexion of a tough day. And it can be just changing your technique, changing your presentation, going with something that you might not think about before, such as fishing a hover rig up shallow, right? A hover rig is generally thought as a more deep water presentation. You cast it out, you let it pendulum back down, and you jig it and you troll it and you let it pendulum back down. But I like to fish them up shallow. I will use a fluke or I'll use a stick bait normally as my main bait. And the reason why I do that is because I like that twirling presentation. It's almost like a tube, but it's got a little bit more glide to it. So it's different than a tube, different than a wacky rig, different than pretty much anything else. And we're talking about showing those bass something different. This fits right in that ballpark. So it can be something as changing out how you fish a hover rig or changing out how you fish a NACO rig. Usually a NACO rig, you fish a little bit more offshore, a little bit deeper water. That's why we put a weight in it to get that fall. So we can fish deeper water with it. That's what makes it different than a wacky rig. But try fishing it shallow. Fish it right up against the bank. I find that I have more success fishing a NACO near the bank than I ever did out in deeper water. And other times it can be as simple as changing how we're doing the presentations we're doing. And for that, I have got a couple of really good tips that you were going to really like. Now, I've briefly talked about them on this channel before, but I kind of want to go over them again because there's really good stuff here. And they don't cost anything. They're very simple to do, and it can change your entire presentation. It can change everything to look underwater without really doing anything at all. It's just a little bit of effort. And we're going to start with, well, the good old fluke. Now, you guys know I like to fish a weightless fluke a lot. I fish a weightless fluke all the time. This is the normal cream. You guys know I like these things. But if you notice in the videos, you'll notice how I have it rigged. And that is, I've got it rigged sideways. I don't have it rigged through the belly. I've got it rigged sideways. And whether I'm using it on a hover rig or whether I'm using it on an EWG hook, this is how I'm going to have it rigged a lot of times. Now, why is that? Well, surface area. We have that broad surface area there on the bottom, which causes this bait to really glide in the water. And because I've got it Texas rigged, I can fish this pretty much anywhere, and I fish it a lot of times in some dense vegetation, some really thick grass. This is one of the keys to my success. This is one of the little secrets that I keep in my back pocket and don't really talk about it much. Now, I've given tips on how to fish a hover rig with a fluke turned sideways, and you guys see me do that before. You guys have seen me where I fish a hover rig with a fluke turned sideways, and it's the same thing, but on an EWG rigged weightless, it just really glides. It glides for so long. And This is great for fishing near the top of the water column and a little bit lower for those suspended bass. I'm fishing this in a lot more shallow water than I normally would, a regular fluke even, but that little glide, that little extra action to it, and I can just tap it with the rod. I can just give it a little pop with the rod. I get so many bites doing that, going low and slow on those really hard days. Sometimes you want those bass to be able to take a really hard look at your bait. Sometimes you want them to notice it and you want them to bite it, if anything else, out of curiosity, like we've talked about before. And rigging your fluke sideways like this, or any type of bait with a lot of surface area, rigging it sideways, a creature bait like a brush hog or even something like a craw, you will get a lot more flap out of it. You'll get a lot more glide out of it. And that right there can be just the thing that you need to go from having no bites to having really good bites and getting a lot more bass than you were before. Now, next up, we've got an interesting little trick, and it's so simple. Takes a stick bait and a pair of scissors. It's so easy to do. Everybody's got a stick bait, everybody's got a pair of scissors. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut this stick bait up. We're going to cut it along the bottom here. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but a lot of times you want to get it as straight as you can so it doesn't fall apart on you. But you cut it like that, and then you turn it sideways, and you cut a couple more slots in it like this, as best as you can. Right? If I can get the scissors on there, there we go. And it opens it up. You've got these little flaps right here, little tendrils, and then you do the same thing to the bottom. You go ahead and you cut that along there. Well, I can just cut it off, but either way, you cut it like that. You get a little bit of a flap on it. Now, you put something like this on a wacky rig, and these arms open up under the water whenever it's moving under the water. And one of the biggest reasons people like something like a Yamamoto Senko or a softer stick bait is for a wacky rig. Why? Because it's got better action on the fall. Nobody's going to debate that. But if you do this and you cut these little tendrils in here, well, that increases the action of any stick bait. I do it with a Yum Dinger. I do it with a cream stick bait. I do it with a Strike King shimmy stick. I do it with any manner of stick bait. I do it with my own. These are the ones that I make. Oops, we are got this sliced up old Zoom Magnum trick worm that we're using, and it's, as it floats down, it's got that look to it. Those tendrils kind of open up. Those tendrils kind of open up, and there we go. Oh yeah, look at that. See how that is? That was a nice catch right there off of that. Hooked him good. That was with the wacky rig. You know, that's number 3 today that we've caught like that. He's a beautiful bass. Gorgeous, gorgeous bass. That's number 3 we've caught today, fishing that technique. Doing that on a wacky rig, it causes it to fall even slower. But that falling action with those tendrils moving almost like fingers under the water can attract so much more attention. And I can do it to a Waco rig too, although I'm only doing it to one side. But you see, this is what I was fishing with today. And whenever it falls in the water, those tendrils, they flap in the water. They just kind of glide all gracefully, and they look enticing. They look alive, and it gives those bass something to target on. It gives them something to focus on. And on a tough day when I really need bites, I will break out something like this, and it is a huge improvement. I go from not getting anything to landing a few fish. And like we said, that can be the key to changing the complexion of an entire day. So it doesn't have to be major changes. That little trick right there, doing that with the stick bait, I'm telling you, give it a try. It is a huge game changer. It changes completely how that stick bait's going to work underwater, and it can really add up to some nice fish. Try it on a day that's not so tough. You might surprise yourself. You might be amazed at how well that works. I've used it to great effect many times. Again, it's not something I talk about a lot on this channel. It's one of the things that I keep in my back pocket, but I'm bringing it out now. But I want you to have these tips. I want you to have these tricks. So when you go out to the water on those tough days, you'll be able to have these small little things to be able to turn your day around. Again, they don't cost any money. They're very simple to do. And you never know. You might come up with your own ideas that'll revolutionize how you fish. A little change here, a little change there. And the next thing you know, you've come up with your own technique that's working great for you. And you can share it with everyone. And that's a great part of being on the bass fishing YouTube community. We can share ideas and we can show each other little tricks like that. So give these a try, whether you're looking for a little bit more glide out of your bait, such as turning the fluke sideways, or you're looking for a little bit more lifelike action out of your stick bait on something like a wacky rig or something like a Waco rig. Give these a try, and I'm sure you're really going to like how it goes for you. So there you have it. A few simple to do, easy tricks and cheats. Whether it's manipulating your bait in a different way or altering it so you get a different type of action out of it. Either way, simple, subtle changes can go a long way in changing the complexion of a day and going from a skunk to catching a few fish. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.